known when you sign up for this one that it'd be the same person from the other one. So I apologize if you're sick of me. I do my best to mix it up a little bit. So today we only have 90 minutes, and that's actually the optimal length for adult learning. Anything longer than that in our brains is a hard time absorbing information. But I have so much I want to talk to you about that I'm going to try to not cram too much in. But please know that a lot of what I'm bringing to you today is something that I actually talk about in a series of trainings. So I'm going to introduce you to a lot of things, and then hopefully at some point I can be with you guys again and we can continue to go deeper. So I'm going to expose you to some information, and then we're going to go deeper in the future, hopefully, if I'm invited back to talk to you. Having said that, there will be things you can bring back on Monday and start doing. But I want to offer us a little bit of an exercise to do. This is an option. You don't have to do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. You're doing your own. You make that choice. But this is something that can help get our brains and our minds primed to be able to learn. So if you want to join me, you can stay seated, but I offer you to stand up. If you can stand up, it's actually even more effective for you. If you want to remain seated, it's absolutely effective as well. So what I'm going to do with you is a little brain training, and I'm going to introduce it to you first, and then we're going to practice it. So we're going to be doing 5 and 1, 5 and 1. We're going to be switching 5 1, 5 1, 5 1, 5 1. 1 and 5 1. You get fancy, you can do whatever you want. Okay. Then we're going to go 5 2, 5 2, 5 2, 5 2. Then we're going to give a little break, and I'm going to have you point at your hand, point at your hand, point at your hand, point at your hand. And then for the big finish, this is a hard one, we're going to do 4 3, 4 3, 4 3, 4 3. Exactly. So if it gets too hard, just dance. Alright, so I'm going to start my music, and then watch me for the shifts. I got to get up on this chair. This will be fun.
Standing on chairs is not safe. Don't stand on the chair. Uh-oh. That's not very safe. Okay.
So you ready? We're
freaking me out right now.
5 1, we'll shift to 5 2, and just freestyle it. Do what you want. So you ready? Start with the 5 1. 5 1, 5 1, 5 1, 5 1, 5 2, 5 2, 5. Now Florence is going to kick in. It's going to get a little harder because we're going to go to the music. Ready? Back to 5 1. Here we go. Here she comes. Go Florence. Shake it out. Now 5 2. 5 2.
Are you doing it? It's hard.
Anybody got fancy? Move your body. Makes it harder. Makes it harder. No, I'm not doing that. Now, let's do the break one. We're going to point at our hands. That's the easier one. Point at your hand. Point at your hand. Point at your hand. That's our little break. Point at your hand. Let's go back to 5 1. Let's see if we got it. 5 1. 5 1. Shake it out. All right, 5 2. Let's bring her back. 5 2. All right, big finish. Ready? We're tired. I'm tired. 4 3. Let's see if we got it. 4 3. 4 3. I don't know why it's so much harder than it is. You have to slow it down. You slow it down. It's all about the pinky. Nice. You got the workaround. All right, great work, guys.
That's hard.
All right. Great work. Now, I do that exercise because preschool teachers, they're going to tell you they love to play. They love to have fun. Go figure. I love to have fun, too. But it's also training your brain. In order to do that, your left and right hemispheres of the brain have to work together. And all parts have to be integrated. So I'm out of breath. Bananas, right? So if you had a hard time with that, don't stress, you don't have some neurological disorder in your head. It's curtains for you. No, it's just practice, right? And your brain probably was out of balance. You were sitting, listening to beat pedal on for a long time, you didn't have a lot of movement. It doesn't mean it's over for you. And just to give you hope, for about 8 years I had Lyme disease. And if anybody knows anything about Lyme disease, it's a horrible, horrible disease. And I was misdiagnosed for many years, and I just got super, super, super sicker. And one of the biggest things that's happened is it's changed my brain. I have trouble with memory. So if you've said something to me, if I know, like I'm constantly asking Tanya the same questions over, I know I am. But I have, it's neurologically, it's changed my brain. I also have trouble with word recall. I stutter a lot of times. I'm just not the same person I was neurologically. But that is one thing I did to try to get my brain back on track. Play with that, practice that. There's also a lot of other brain gym stuff you can do, and I do yoga, blah, blah, blah. But we want to program the left and right hemispheres of our brain to be working together to be in optimal functioning. So that's a little fun thing for you guys to practice if you want. You don't ever have to feel comfortable with it. So today, we're going to be talking about teaching with the brain in mind. And the subtext of that is seeing the child behind the behavior. And again, like I said before, one of the main things I get called to train on and to teach, to coach in classrooms is this challenging behavior, right? So if we could just figure out the secret sauce for getting rid of challenging behavior, our jobs would be so much easier. But the problem is it will never go away. There's no magic framework or set of strategies that will eliminate challenging behavior because children's brains aren't fully developed. This is just a fact. But today, now that I have you guys alone, it's a smaller size, we're going to go a little bit deeper into the brain reasons for behavior and some of the mind methods for what you can do to change that behavior. The one on the bottom? Working? There it goes. Okay. So how many of you, first of all, have been through teaching pyramid, or they call it CEPHL or C-CEPHL? A few people. Okay. So as Tanya mentioned, over the last 9 years, one of my main jobs was working with Wested, changing that, updating it. So everything that you learned about in there about the brain came from our changes from the National Center. CEPHL is a group of people out of Nashville, Vanderbilt University, and it created something called the Teaching Pyramid Framework. It's a framework to promote social emotional development and prevent challenging behavior. It's an amazing framework. But we adapted it at Wested, updated a lot of stuff, and brought in the brain stuff. So if you've been through Teaching Pyramid, you might have seen what I'm going to do with the brain right now, a model for the brain, but it's always good to hear it again because I'm sure it's easy to forget. So in order to understand, for us normal people to understand the brain, Daniel Siegel created something called the brain in the palm of the hand. So we can consider the brain as having 3 parts and developing over time. The first part of the brain to develop, we can use the hand, is this part at the base of our hand called the brainstem. Now the brainstem does a lot of stuff that you don't even have to think about. It tells your heart to beat, it regulates your blood pressure, your body temperature, a lot of automatic functions. We never have to tell our heart to beat or our blood pressure to course through our veins. The brainstem. The brainstem is also involved in the fight, flight, freeze, or faint mode. So if we're going back to the time that we learned about that in science, we learned that we all know a little bit about it, but we need to update some of our knowledge of it because it's part of seeing the child behind the behavior. So brainstem is part of that as well. The next part of the brain to develop, which is done in the middle, is the limbic center. The limbic center. Now, for our purposes, I'm going to streamline what the limbic center does because it does a lot. The limbic center is involved in our emotional regulation. So there's 2 structures in the limbic center called the amygdala that actually signal an alarm bell that there's an emergency going on. And we react, right? We do something really quickly, we react without thinking. It's also responsible for attachment, and it's also responsible for memory, the limbic center. A lot of things happen in the limbic center, but it also teams up with the brainstem for that fight, flight, freeze, or faint. Daniel Siegel calls this part of the brain the downstairs brain, because much like if you were building a house, it's the first part of the brain to be fully developed. The downstairs, brainstem and limbic center. The next part of the brain to fully develop is what we close our hand. Now here we have our brain situated like this, with our knuckles forward. This part's called the cortex. In general, it's called the cortex. That part of the brain does some incredibly magical stuff, like planning, initiating, organizing, and carrying out tasks, while regulating your emotions, shifting gears when necessary, resolving conflicts, focal attention, impulse control, all the fun stuff we want our children in our classrooms to do, right? We want them to be able to work throughout the day by regulating themselves, regulating their attention. Every transition needs this part of the brain. Playing needs this part of the brain. But when did we say this part of the brain, the whole brain, is fully developed? Yeah, you updated it, mid-20s, yeah. So we're asking kids to use this part of the brain, and it's not fully developed till the mid-20s. So we're always going to have challenging behavior. Because when a child's amygdala sounds the alarm bell, we flip our lids. The child flips their lid. And they react from the downstairs brain. Now here's the thing. You do it too. We react automatically to many things, and that's evolutionarily adaptive. When I was walking down a trail the other day in San Diego, and there was a black thing stretched out on the trail, and it was 100 degrees, I didn't go, let me go investigate that. My brain got me out of there, registering it as possibly a snake. Okay? So we want to be able to react. We want that fight, flight, freeze, or thing. We want that, but we overdo it. We overdo it. And children tend to overdo it because they don't have this part of their brain fully developed. Right? So our goal as teachers is to be responsive, be in our integrated brains, and not reactive with kids. Now when children are reactive, they may scream, bite, punch, hit, throw themselves on the ground, right? That's clear, they're in their reactive brain. And hopefully that's not what you guys are doing. But we still are reactive, we still flip our lids, we're just more subtle about it. And we'll talk about some of this flip lid behavior that you may be doing because your safety, satisfaction, and connection needs are not being met and you flip your lid. So when all the parts of the brain are connected, the brainstem, the limbic center, and the cortex, we say the brain is integrated. We want differentiation, the different parts doing what they do, but we want them to be linked. We want them to be integrated. So that's your goal with children, is to not only be building their brains, we want to work on building them, and you're doing that. Trust me, you're doing it already. But really what our focus is, we want them working together. So how do we do that? I'm going to give you tips today. Please know that the brain can change over a lifetime. Now we say the brain's fully developed in the mid-20s. That just means all the architecture is there, but that architecture can be modified. So in my private practice, I see a lot of couples. I do a lot of couples work. It's really fun. And what I hear all the time, especially couples that have been together 10, 20, 30 years. I have a couple right now, 50 years. Well, I know what he's going to say. Oh, old dog, you can't teach him new tricks. That's in fact not true. That's us being lazy, right? Or that's because we don't want to change. You can teach an old dog new tricks, but the old dog has to want to learn, has to be open and receptive, has to be humble, and has to attune to their own actions and stop looking at their wife and saying it's her, or vice versa. Yeah? Amen. So the brain can change over a lifetime. And the brain develops based on genes. There's some genetic predispositions, and that's where we get typical, neuroatypical, we get children with disabilities, special needs. There's some genetic differences there. But experience actually acts upon genes to determine how we develop. Here's a concrete example. We all have muscles in our body. We all have muscles. We have these quadriceps, these largest muscle group in our body. But we're not all Olympic sprinters, right? In order for those Olympic sprinters to become elite athletes, they needed the experience of training. Now they also probably have a genetic predisposition to have their muscles be a little stronger. They're slow twitch and fast twitch muscles, and we have genetic variants of that. But without that experience, they weren't going to become Olympic athletes. So the other thing is we have to be committed to seeing the child behind the behavior and avoiding these labels. The child is challenging, the child is defiant, the child is willful. They're not done, you guys. They may have challenging behavior. They may be behaving in ways that are challenging for you, but they're not done. The experiences you provide them can replace the challenging behavior with appropriate behavior over time. Okay. talk about using our minds to change our brain in the context of a relationship. And when we do this, we're going to consider the brain reasons for the challenging behavior. And I already hinted at some in the keynote, and also some of the mind methods for how to change that behavior. I forgot I made that fancy. That's too fancy. So first we're going to take a look at a little video, and I want you to consider seeing the child behind the behavior as you watch this video. So the first time I saw this video, I laughed too. It seems really funny. And I'm not trying to shame or blame you, but today we're going to look a little deeper, because now I no longer think this video is funny. And some of you were like, no, I didn't think it was funny either. So this is not to shame ourselves if you laughed. It's okay that you laughed. And also some people laugh when they're nervous too. But look at that face. Okay? So somewhere along the line, this parent got the memo or read a book that said you ignore children when they're having a tantrum. And that's an old practice that we have now gotten rid of. And one of the reasons we've gotten rid of that doesn't mean we don't ignore some behaviors, but when a child is in a state of crisis, we don't ignore it. Because this child, my hypothesis based on science, is this child's trapped in their downstairs brain. And they're looking to attune with you, they're looking to connect with you to get their safety needs met. They're in emotional Iraq right now, this child. Okay? Now this looks manipulative to many people. People have told me, well, he knows what he's doing. This child is incredibly resilient. This child will go after his safety and satisfaction and connection needs even when the only person that can provide it for him is ignoring him. And then the second person, the dog, is on board too. He's even ignoring them. So today I hope you consider this little guy and consider that when our children are having challenging behavior, many times it's not to all the time, it's not to manipulate us. It is to get their safety, satisfaction, and connection needs. And as they get older and the brain fully develops, certainly there is manipulation that comes in. But even then, that's just a bad habit. They're still trying to get their safety, satisfaction, and connection needs met. There's no getting away from it. Okay? So we have a chance, because they've only been on the planet 0 to 5 years, to prevent the manipulation from becoming a trait. They may try that behavior out, but if we give them other behaviors to get their needs met, they won't be manipulative. There's no manipulation here. This is a desperate child trying to seek emotional regulation. He's in his downstairs brain, and he needs integration. Okay. So let's take a deeper look at what we can do. To see the child behind the behavior, we want to think about what is this behavior communicating. What is any challenging behavior a child is sending to us? What is it communicating? And I gave you this idea that it's communicating one of three basic needs. So the need for safety, physical and emotional, the need for satisfaction. Satisfaction can also be talked about. If any of you have been through Jane Nelson's training on positive discipline, and being significance. Everyone wants to feel significant. You at your job want to feel satisfied. You want to feel like you do a good job. You want to feel significant. You want to feel like you matter. And then connection needs, and Jay talks about those as belonging. Belonging and significance. So we want physical and emotional safety, satisfaction or significance, and connection or belonging. Because we develop in the context of relationships. But here's what I want to add in for us today too, is this idea of need versus want. And see if you can update your software to consider that it's not just the child's doing this because they want something, they actually physically need it. We need safety, satisfaction, and connection to thrive, to actually do our jobs, right? And here's what happens, because many of us do our jobs without those needs being met, and then we do things to cope. We overeat, we drink too much, we don't sleep enough, we fight with people, right? This is what we do to cope, because you're not getting your safety, satisfaction, and connection needs met. And so we want to work on, before these children develop habits, when they become adults, we want to work on them finding successful ways, appropriate ways, healthy ways to get their safety, satisfaction, and connection needs met. But it's hard. It's hard when you, the adult, who is their primary teacher, you're not getting yours met. So here's the tough part about teaching, is we have to use our whole selves to teach these children, and often we're not getting our own needs met. And so I provide a whole separate series of trainings on the adult getting their safety, satisfaction. How can we design your environment to promote those? But for today, we're going to start with focusing on the child. It's a need, it's not a want. Does he want the red truck? Yes. But when he hits his friend to get the red truck, it's more of an unmet need of physical safety, emotional safety, satisfaction, or connection. So one child says to another, can I have that red truck? And Corey says to me, no. So I hit her over the head to get the red truck. Now easy, you go, well, she wanted the red truck. Absolutely. But if you look deeper, the need was for me, my brain to regulate itself, because I'm emotionally threatened that you said no, which means I'm either angry, disappointed, confused, scared. I don't feel connected to you because I asked you, I gave you a bid and you said no, right? And I don't feel satisfied because I didn't get the red truck. So we want to go deeper than just the surface and look at the need. So the place we may need to start though, and this is okay, is calling in the function of behavior. So in Teaching Pyramid, we talk a lot about this. All behavior also can be looked at through the lens of function. The child's trying to get something, avoid something, or to express an emotion. Get something, avoid something, or express an emotion. And usually it's all three. Okay? In my example right there, where I hit Corey, you could say, oh, she wanted to get the red truck. Okay, that's a possibility, that's a hypothesis. I wanted to avoid what? Guesses? I wanted to avoid what?
You need a red truck.
I did, but what did I want to avoid because I needed? What's that?
People no.
Being told no. I want to avoid rejection. What else might I want to avoid?
Any sort of negative confrontation.
Any negative confrontation? Yep.
Getting in trouble.
Tell me more about that.
Like, if you feel like you're going to get punished.
Yeah.
And so you just start doing what you normally do because you feel like you're going to get punished, so you react.
Yeah, you react. I was in my downstairs brain, right? I reacted when I hit Corey. Yeah. And certainly, if you have this fear of punishment, your emotional safety needs aren't being met. Nice. Any sort of confrontation, yes. So really, also in the service, I want to avoid waiting to use the red truck. So I'm going to take it into my own hands and I'm going to get it. So what was I trying to express when I hit Corey? Frustration, maybe?
Gaining
Anger.
control. Gaining control of the situation, maybe?
That would be under get, for sure. That would be, I want to get control, no question. That's a big thing. We all want control, and that's because of our needs. But what will we, if we're trying to get control, what emotion might I be expressing if I don't feel I have control? Disappointment. Here's a big one, guys. Fear. Now I don't look scared because I'm clobbering her. So as a teacher, you're going to focus on her maybe being scared because I just pummeled her. But I'm scared, possibly. I'm in my downstairs brain, and you think it's just a red truck. But it's not just a red truck. It's all the unmet needs that have come before that. It's all the risks in my environment, both in the home and possibly at school, the ambient trauma that is part of being in group care. Too many transitions, too many kids, too much telling me what to do. And in that moment, I'm reacting versus responding. Here's a tip for you. Every challenging behavior has a strong emotion behind it. I said it in the keynote, but I'm saying it again. Every challenging behavior is about expressing emotion. Every single one. It's not just about that. It's also about either getting something or avoiding something. So the connection between function and needs. So we see the form of the behavior, right? I hit Corey. The form of the behavior is me hitting. But we're going to stop you and say, all right, we got to go beyond that. We don't want to just control children. We want to teach them. So now I have to look back and say, okay, what was she trying to get, avoid, or express there? And one of the things I'm trying to get, avoid, or express is my unmet needs. So I hit Corey over the head because I had an unmet need for emotional safety. You're not meeting my emotional safety needs, Corey. I am sorry. You look really sweet. You probably would just give me the truck, right? I have an unmet need for satisfaction, and I have an unmet need for connection. So I wanted to get it, avoid it, express it because of my unmet needs. See the connection? Now this takes time for it to become a habit of mind for you. I walk into classrooms and I realize that not everybody has this in their mental model, right? People are still at the place where they see a child hit another child and they're thinking of, I need to stop that child. But that's where your job gets harder, not smarter. Because if you're only focusing on stopping the challenging behavior, you're missing all of this piece. So this is 21st century. This is updating your software to realize that if we get stuck, because it's hard, we react when children spit, bite, kick, punch other kids or ourselves. It's scary. But if we stop there, then we're not teaching them the replacement behaviors that they need. So let's look at that. So the drive to meet the basic needs and functions impacts all behavior in learning. And remember, the brain is designed to drive us, but the mind can help us determine how we drive. Just like in a car has an engine, right? But a car can't drive itself, well, yet. They're learning to, right? You have to update this analogy for the 21st century. But before these scientists got on board with self-driving cars, the engine's there. But we monitor and modify the car with the steering wheel, the brake pedal, and the gas. Our mind tells the brain how to function, and the brain tells the mind how to function. So although the children's brain now is not fully developed and they flip their lids easily, we can use their minds to tell their brains to chill out. And it's not by saying to them, calm down. If you say to a child, calm down, stop doing that. It's like if you and I are sisters and we're fighting and you go, Laura, calm down. I'm mad at you now. Don't tell me to calm down. Teach me how to calm down. And the best way to teach me to calm down is tune in. Validate my emotions. Validate my experience. And then I will calm down. Because when you attune to a child who's having challenging behavior, they can get back, their emotional safety needs get met, and then the learning can take place. So we tend to do it backwards. So let's take a look at a video. I'm going to have you guys practice this. And if you've been through teaching pyramid or CEPL, whatever you call it, CEPL, You've seen this video. This is Tim. This little guy in the red shirt, this is Tim. And I want you guys to watch this little video clip from a preschool classroom. This is a Head Start preschool classroom. And I want you to think about, as you're seeing the form of the behaviors and thinking about the behavior as it unravels, what is Tim trying to maybe get, avoid, and express, and what are some of his unmet needs possibly? And we're just guessing. You can't be certain. I'm not certain. I would have to test out my guess afterwards. But we have to start with a guess, right? We have to start with a hypothesis. All science starts with a hypothesis. So let's see, what do you think? Just be thinking about it. I'm going to ask you after. What's he trying to get, avoid, or express?
Look, I'm bringing a ladder. Wow! That is practical. No! It's not as fast. It's called a ladder.
Right? That's the initial whoo! And then, what do we think? Well, first of all, what's the form of the challenging behavior? What do you see? The form. How would you describe it? No, that's an emotion. Awesome. Stay with that, but we'll put that a pin in that. What's the behavior you see Tim do?
Physical?
So we can't see aggression. We can't see aggression. That's a label, right?
Physical.
Describe it. Go deeper, guys. That's the function. Put a pin in it. You're there. What's the form of the behavior? What did he do? What did we see, not think? He got up.
And then he went to the girl,
grabbed
grabbed her hair.
Gorgeous. That's it. That's it. But that's not what our brain thinks. Our brain thinks he was aggressive, or he wanted this, or he wanted this. We miss that part. That part's important. Because that's what Tim uses to get his needs met. So we have to just think, oh, that's off the table. What else do we need to teach him? Yeah? But then we want to bring in those other pieces. We want to bring in function. Let's go there. What was Tim trying to get, avoid, and or express by getting up, walking over, and shaking her head? What do you think? So remember what attention is? Here's what attention is. If Tim wanted attention, this is what he wanted. He wanted engagement, maybe. Absolutely. Maybe he wanted engagement.
He was trying to get his buddies to listen to what he was doing and telling his story about the ladder and setting it. And he had this whole thing going on in his little mind. And what he wanted was his buddies that were there within earshot to pay attention to me and listen to my story, because I've already played it out in my head. And this is what's happened with this ladder and whatever was going on in his little mind. He was so mad that they weren't listening to his little story.
So, could you guys hear that? Yeah. So, what you're talking about is executive functioning. Tim had a plan. He was trying to initiate and carry out his plan. He was trying to get everybody on board with his plan, and he couldn't shift gears. It's not a track, it's a ladder, is what he said at one point. Maria tried to take the little Duplo thing. No, we can't shift gears. Those are mine. Even if you heard the one little boy said, no, those are Tim's. So he couldn't regulate his emotions. So really, what he was trying to get was control of the play. He was trying to execute his plan. Yes. It's not attention. He wanted to be able to execute his plan to meet his safety, satisfaction, and connection needs. Don't we all? I had a plan for this. If you guys start interrupting me and start talking about other things and you're talking about going to Disneyland, I don't want that. I have a plan. I'm talking about something else right now. Right? Fascinating. What might he be trying to avoid? What might that behavior that he just had with this, what might he be trying to avoid? It's usually the opposite of what he's trying to get. Just think of what he's trying to get. If you're trying to get something, that always means the flip side is you're trying to avoid something. He wanted to avoid losing control. He wanted to avoid having them play in a different way. He wanted to avoid not being able to carry out his plan. Maybe. That's our best guess right now. And then finally, express. What might Tim have been expressing when he got to this point? Frustration. What else? Anger. What else? Disappointment. What else? F word. Fear. Don't forget fear, guys. And the reason I want you to think about fear is we adults get so mad at these little kiddos sometimes. And if we can consider they've been on the planet 0 to 5 years, and that some of their behavior that looks super scary is really based on fear, we soften. And we can stay in our integrated brain and think, I don't like the form of this behavior, but I understand the function, and he's scared. He may have parents that are in a domestic violence situation. He may not have enough food. He may be kept, in a basement, right? We don't know what's going on in children's lives. Especially if we work with high-risk families, right? So get, avoid, and express. Now, think about what he might have been trying to do with his safety, satisfaction, connection needs. Do you think he felt physically safe? Yeah. I mean, the people that designed the environment really well, they didn't seem to any physical safety needs. The person he pulled probably doesn't feel so physically safe, yeah? But Tim, we're focusing on Tim, he felt physically safe. How about emotionally, you think? No. If he's feeling fear, anger, disappointment, frustration, it's emotional unsafety. It's emotional instability for all of us. And then do you think he was feeling satisfied? No. Okay. So all of this is just to help us stay in our integrated brain so we can understand the brain reasons for behavior. Now we got them. We got the brain reasons for his behavior. And now we can utilize some mind methods to change that behavior. Because we're going to have to change that behavior. And we don't change it by saying, Tim, you're not being friendly. Tim, look how you made her feel. Tim, that's dangerous behavior. Shaming and blaming is not teaching. It's an old habit we got to get rid of. Jane Nelson, again, the author of Positive Discipline, over 17 books, said, when did we get the crazy idea that children have to feel bad in order to do good? But we do it all the time. It would be like me coming into the classroom and going, you're not a good teacher. You're not being respectful with the kids. You're not doing enough to meet their needs. Your circle stinks. Your transitions are too long. I'm just telling you all the things you're doing wrong. Now, unfortunately, based on your upbringing, that may motivate you to do better, right? Because a lot of us are habituated to when we're shamed, something triggers in our brain and we do better. I'm sorry if that's you. That's your upbringing. We don't want to do that to kids. We can get to the same place without the shame. And we don't have to deal with all the nastiness that comes. Okay. So I'm going to give you about 7 minutes. I want you to take a pause. If you're an introvert like me, you can just think about what you just heard and just sit in your own little world. But if you're an extrovert, you like to talk to other people about what you're learning, so turn and talk to someone about it. But I'd like you to consider how this information may impact your teaching. We've talked about brain development, needs, function, needs versus wants, and how might this information help you see the child behind the behavior. In this 7 minutes, try to avoid going into too many stories about the parents and all this stuff. Try to focus on integrating what you just learned. These are moments for you. This is for you. 7 minutes to try to make sense of what you just heard in your minds. Okay? Go ahead. If you have any questions, let me know.
Hopefully it's going.
Well, you know, if it doesn't, it's okay. It's not heart surgery. Let's see how it's doing. I was worried it was going to lose power.